Good morning and good evening around the world. Good afternoon, wherever you are joining. And welcome to this webinar where we today will talk how you will be able to better support your yard operators and your workers on the yard using SAP Yard Logistics. So let's directly jump into the topic. I'm delighted to have with me my colleague Matthias Platzer. So Matthias, please feel free to introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Matthias Platzer. I'm the practice director for Yard Logistics here in Europe. And today we are going to talk a little bit about mobile apps in the yard.
Perfect, thank you. And my name is Michael Augustin. I'm the global director for Yard Logistics practice here within Westernacher. And before we will jump directly into the topic, we will just give you a short little update and brief overview of who we are and who Westernacher is and what we do in the area of yard logistics. Before we will dig deep a little bit into the topic of manual versus digital yards, we will of course also show you what yard logistics is capable of doing in terms of supporting your workers in the yard and also enabling digitized yard processes rather than having them running manual or on paper. And then towards the end of our 45-minute session today, we will also then look into the overall approach which we take in order to help you to reach these goals which we are going to outline today. So very briefly on Westernacher, on our company here. So we are a global SAP consulting company with a very strong focus on supply chain management and supply chain execution, being on the market now for 50+ years, being SAP partners since the beginning of the 90s, with a very strong footprint asset in supply chain management and supply chain execution. We've been the first company to implement EWM. We've been one of the forerunners for TM, and we've been also the first ones to implement yard logistics. But besides the supply chain execution point of view, we also support our customers in their S4 journey, which many customers are right now about to start, as well as helping our customers in the planning area and as well as in other areas such as analytics and Industry 4.0. We are a global consulting company with a global delivery model, which means that we are present around the world, able to support our customers not only locally or regionally, but also globally when it comes to global rollout projects and global rollout programs, with presence in 26 cities as of now in 19 countries, and that all with one vision, which is to help our customers innovating and going the next step forward with all the latest technology which is there on the market. Coming to our yard logistics practice very briefly, as I already mentioned, Westernacher was the first implementation partner of SAP Yard Logistics back in 2017, 2018. Since then, we have constantly invested into this topic, which results in 15+ engagements, which we have done so far, with a team of more than 25 consultants around the world, in Europe, in the US, and in India. And as already said, given the fact that we've been the first company to implement YL, we were able to also extend that further by doing some other implementations as first, so to say, in other countries as well as in other industries. Good, so let's directly start looking into the topic. And before we go into the system demo and the relevant process steps, we want to first of all lay a little bit the ground and make the foundation when it comes to digitized operations on the yard, because what we see is that as of today, many customers are facing challenges where especially the site logistics operations and the yards itself still are running on a very manual and very cumbersome process. So when we look at key industries for yard logistics and for optimized and digitized yard processes, we are in general looking at 4 industries here. Yeah, one of them is distribution, retail, and consumer products, which we consider, let's say, as the classical warehouse scenario, yeah, where you have warehouses with a lot of doors, with a lot of throughput as well, where it's key that you are running on an optimized schedule, that you do not have too many delays, because otherwise you will face trucks piling up, might lose visibility and efficiency if you don't know where your trailers are parked in the yard, if we are talking about shunting operations. And that's obviously one of the overall goals here. The second industry is the chemicals industry. Given the fact and given the nature that these yards typically are very large from an area perspective, Typically in a chemical yard, we also have multiple modes of transport. We not only have trucks which we have to handle, we also have to handle rail cars, potentially also vessels. That also makes the need for digitized solution and a digitized process which works hand in hand when it comes to loading between means of transport, for example, and also optimizing the process flow there. Third industry, very obvious, which when it comes to yard logistics and yards as such, is terminals and ports, obviously, especially when we're talking about a container scenario, where I have to move several containers in the yard, where I have to load and unload vessels, where it's very key that you all come up with the optimized planning, that you have an optimized planning for moving the containers in the yard, as well as also the visibility. And the last industry here is the automotive manufacturing industry, which of course also again needs digitization, needs also the possibility to, for example, make sure that whenever a car is leaving the assembly line, that it's in good quality. Constant checks are performed before the cars are leaving for the end customer. And these are then key processes and also key visibility, key value drivers for these industries. Yeah. When we look at a typical process flow in a truck yard, so in a typical warehouse, and this is going to be our example for today, we see from a yard perspective one very, very key thing which we have to always outline. Yeah, the yard is the core. The yard is the bridge between the transportation on the one side, but also the warehouse on the other side, or the production, depending on the scenario we are looking at. So, looking at this scenario which we have prepared here, you see that the yard as such is always tied to the transportation planning and the arrival planning. So without knowing what to expect and when to expect, from a yard perspective, of course, optimization and efficiency gains are hard to achieve. From a process perspective, yard logistics, besides the arrival planning, handles everything between check-in and check-out from an operational perspective, and this is what we are going to see today in some selected examples. So when it comes to how do we check in drivers, to how do we assign doors, to how can we route drivers, how can we load and unload the truck, how do we make sure that if we load a truck that it's also properly secured, how can we maintain inspections in the process, how can we potentially do shunting operations if we want to shunt trailers from A to B. So all these aspects, these are the in-yard processes which can be digitized and also optimized by yard logistics in order to gain these efficiency advantages, and some of them we will see today. So with this, Matthias, why don't you start walking us a little bit through the examples which we have prepared, and also through the system demo.
Yes. So let's see. Switching over here to the presentation. All right. As an introduction to today's topic, to the digital worker, yeah, just a little recap on how this labor distribution, how the job distribution is performed with manual yards where no system is in place. We just need to focus on the structure here. Yeah, there would be a central office and the outside yard. Yeah, first of all. Yeah, and in the central office there would be happening the planning. Yeah, meaning the job planning. And how would the worker outside in the yard receive, yeah, these jobs? First of all, there would be the possibility, of course, that the job is dispatched by radio communication to the outside worker. Yeah? The other option here is that the outside worker walks to the central office and just receives the notification about and the infos about the job. Yeah, and yeah, you would be aware that this walking times would be drastically, yeah, for each and every worker to return to the central office. And when thinking about container terminals, when thinking about rail yards, this would be very, very long distances for the outside worker. What's happening next? Yeah, the worker performs the job, yeah, without any system guidance, and the worker would document the job with pen and paper outside directly in the yard. Yeah? So we have a manual logging of the job details after the job was performed. And once again, we need to get this information, this job documentation back to the central office. Yeah? You see this here. This is also manual feedback to the central office, either by radio communication or walking, but in either options, there would be then a manual documentation done by the central office, by another worker in the central office. So a very complex process overall. But when we have a look at the digital yard, we would see the central office is no longer central office, it would be a system itself, and the outside yard. And the central system, the centralized system would have an automatic assignment of jobs to the outside workers, based on the job type, based on the location of the job, and so on and so on. So the worker would receive the job details directly on a mobile device without any walking times, without any radio communication. The worker performs the job physically, and the job is then logged by the worker directly in the mobile device with the automated feedback to the system, with an automated documentation. So there is ideally there's not even any worker in the central office participating in this labor distribution. And everything is documented, everything is uploaded to the system, and we have it there for future reporting inquiries, for example. Okay, let's go to the system demo. And maybe it's worth mentioning, whenever there is a question, whenever you would have a question, just raise it directly in our chat, and we will address them directly or at the end of the system demo. Let's go to our first example here, and this would be a truck and trailer inspection. This is happening, it's a very common job, a very common inspection routine happening on yards, where the truck is inspected, meaning that we check the license plate or document the license plate. We inspect and document visible damages of the truck. We take pictures, and we answer a question catalog, for example. And in our system example, this is done, of course, digitally. And the worker and the driver then signs digitally. And also these two signatures are uploaded directly to the system. I will now go to the system itself, our example. And as you see, this is our example yard here. This is the truck and trailer yard with the visualization that comes with the Yard Logistics. And the first job that we would perform here is the inspection on one of these trucks here. Therefore, this would be, of course, the visualization on in an office on a desktop PC. If I now go to the mobile operations, so this is what the outside worker would have to work with. So those are all the different options, the different mobile applications a digital worker would have in for the daily work. In our example, I will just go to the one app that we want to show right now. This is the trailer check. And what does the worker do? He just logs on to the app, and then he would see his personal object work list. So all the a list of all the jobs that are due, that are needed to be done and that are assigned to him, to him or her. And based on the location, for example, he just starts with one of the tasks that is available here. And keep in mind, I'm using this now on a desktop PC, in order to have this visualized here in this webinar. This is, of course, a mobile application, meaning that it would directly just adjust to the screen from the mobile device. So those are so-called Fiori apps that would adjust directly on the end device that is being used by the worker. But let's start with the inspection. We have our trailer here. We are standing physically in front of the trailer, and now we are logging the details. For example, the license plate that can be captured here directly. We would have the parking place at the moment, and this would be the inspection area. And we could also select the trailer pool, for example. But Let's go to the physical check. When we see any visible damage somewhere on the truck, you can directly then log this and just log the position of the damage on either side. Let's go for example here. There might be a visible damage. We just take it as this, and of course we can take a picture as well, of the damage. And also keep in mind, so this is now opening the dialog for the picture. We'll capture this, and this is now directly uploaded to the system as well. And picture this. This is now the example of a truck and trailer. This can be any means of transportation, of course. So this can be a rail car, this can be a container, and so on and so on. Let's go to step 3. This was the only damage that we had here. And now we are answering a question here, a question catalog. And of course, this is also customizable. So those are just example questions to be answered by the outside worker. Is the truck pre-cooled correctly? Yes. Is the cleanliness okay? Is the smell okay? And so on and so on. So just keep in mind, those questions are dependent on the physical process that you're facing. So this is just configuration of the system. Whatever needs to be questioned or whatever needs to be asked to the worker, you could just configure it in the system per process step. Let's go to step 4. This would now be the signature. First of all, from the internal worker, from the checker. This is then just a digital signature. You could also use a small pen, to have this signature taken. And of course, the driver, the external worker, also needs to give his signature. And keep in mind, those signatures are also directly uploaded to Yard Logistics. So they are directly assigned to the truck that was inspected and to the order where this was happening. And it will be available until it's archived in a couple of years. So meaning that whenever there is any inquiry, from insurances and so on and so on, you could just go into the system and revisit the certain truck or the certain order, and you would have it directly digitalized. And we'll now just finish this. This was our first example. So without any manual documentation, without any manual interaction with pen and paper, this process step, the inspection, the truck inspection, was now finished. Let's go to our second example. This would be the container gas certificate. So also a very common use case, the container inspection. Once again, the worker would receive this directly on the mobile device. He can then take a picture, answer the questionnaire, measure the gas concentration and document the sealings, and also move then later on the container to storage. So we can, after we did the inspection, we can directly log the movement from A to B in the yard. Let's go to our second example in the system. This would be here. This is now a container yard. We see once again the 2 warehouses here. We see the different surroundings here, and we see our containers piled up here directly at the quayside area. And this is where this gas measurement, this container inspection will happen. Once again, this is the yard visualization in on a desktop PC. Now I switch to the mobile operations, to the apps for the mobile device. And once again, we see, okay, what would a worker have to work with? And let's go for this one here, the so-called Yard Task Execution app. And we can put it so one of my colleagues referred to this as the Swiss Army knife of Fiori apps, and it is what it is. You can do everything with this one. Yeah. Let's see. We have our personal object work list on the left-hand side, so we would see which jobs are assigned to us. Once again, this would adjust directly to the screen size. Yeah. And as you see, some areas and some sections are completely hidden if you're using a small screen resolution. Let's make this big again. We have 2 jobs here in our queue. Yeah, we will just start with this one. This is our container. We know, okay, or we see this is now at keyside area, and we start the job. Once again, this job start, maybe I should mention this as well. This is directly logging the timestamp of the start. So even the start and end of this job can be logged or is documented directly in the system. Yeah, so you would have the actual duration of those tasks. Let's go for our first task here. Yeah, the first part of the inspection would be, for example, the picture taking. Yeah, so this is also possible with this application. As you see here, I can, because I'm on a desktop PC, I can only upload a picture here. If you're using the same application on a mobile device, this would trigger the camera of the mobile device, and the camera would directly upload the picture then into the system. We have a questionnaire here, yeah, the same as we saw before, but now with a different configuration. Those are different questions now to be asked. First of all, can you issue a gas-free certificate? Yes, I can. Is there a significant gas concentration in the container? No. Yeah. Dependent on the answers to these questions, you could also trigger follow-up activities. For example, is there a significant gas concentration in the container? If this is answered by yes, yeah, this would mean the container could be moved, or the system would force the container to be moved to a quarantine section, for example. But let's go on with our process step here. Now I'm taking the measurement of the gas concentration, and these measurements, keep in mind, those are also configurable, meaning that for your individual process, the individual measurement can be taken. So it could be, for example, also fuel levels, it could be the temperature of filling, and so on and so on. In our case, this is the gas concentration itself. We also want to document the seals on the container. I will input this one here, and the second one as well. So you see, this is also directly uploaded to the system. We would have even more possibilities in here, yeah, the details and the exceptions, but for now I will just confirm this one. Yeah? So the inspection was done. Next thing is then to move this to the storage, and this might be done by a different person, by a different worker. And now here's the clue. We can use those applications with different work lists. Let's put it like that. Yeah? As you see here, the resource, yeah, can be selected and needs to be selected only the first time you log on to the system. Meaning that even if a worker logs onto the system, he only needs to select his or her personal resource at the beginning of the shift, for example, or at the beginning of the day. Yeah? I will now switch to, we just had the carbon inspection, so we did see all the inspection jobs. I will now switch to a Murphy vehicle where all the movement activities are suggested. As you see, this is once again my work list on the left-hand side. I can see what I need to do in the next couple of hours. For now, I will just choose, for example, this one here, this activity, now moving the container from a source location, which is the keyside area where we just did the inspection, to a loading lane. Yeah, this would be the storage. And once again, you see this is the same application as before. We'll click on start. But in this configuration, yeah, I don't need to answer questionnaires, for example. I don't need to take measurements because we had this already. Yeah, the only thing I need to do is to log the physical movement from A to B, so from the keyset area to the loading lane. I could even adjust the destination location. So this was planned by the system, that this goes to the loading lane. If this is physically blocked, for example, I can also edit this destination location just to make sure that that the real life data is in the system. And yeah, let's go for confirm. Now this job is done. And those two examples were now just in the process flow, meaning that they were foreseen tasks, foreseen jobs to be performed by the outside worker. And there's a third example as well. Let's go to the slideshow. Again, the third example is an ad hoc task. As you see, the yard logistics system is very flexible, and you can have this digital workflow, this foreseen tasks, but of course, reality is a little bit more than just foreseen tasks. It needs to, or the system needs to be capable of also logging jobs that were not foreseen. Yeah. So, for example, a worker sees a damage somewhere on the yard for a container, then he would just create his personal task for inspection to log this damage. Yeah. Or the worker needs, without a system planning, to move certain types of cargo, then he would just create those tasks on a mobile device. Yeah. Or for example, also some loading tasks, could also be created directly by the outside worker. The goal is just, or the target is just, to always have the physical situation on the yard directly in the system as well. So like a digital twin of your yard's operation in the system. Let's go to our example. Therefore, I need to switch again. This is now, go here to, you see I have a lot of different tabs open here. So this should be it. This is once again happening on our truck and trailer yard. This is the wrong one. I need to close down a little bit here. So in our system example, it seems like I missed my correct system. There it is. Sorry for that. Now back to our truck and trailer yard. As you see in the visualization, there are a lot of different transportation units in the yard. Yeah. So we need a possibility, or the digital worker needs a possibility, to create an ad hoc yard task for each and every transportation unit that stands here. Yeah. And this is exactly what we will see now. If we go to our mobile applications, we would now have here the app, the ad hoc yard task, meaning that the digital worker, or the worker outside, can directly go into this application outside when physically standing in front of the transportation unit. And as you see here, this is now the dialog for this. First of all, the worker just decides what needs to be done, for example, a movement or a loading or an inspection. So he or she would have access to all the different jobs that are configured in the system. And we just need to decide for which transportation unit this should happen. Yeah. And even there, we have different possibilities. Yeah. And as you see here, we can also trigger this with high priority and create the task. Another way of doing this would be directly by the license plate, for example. Now we'll go first of all into the license plate. I will just see, okay, I need to inspect, or I need to move this trailer here, for example. So I will select the license plate, the transportation unit to that, and I will select the movement. And then I also need to just give the destination location of this one. And here I can just state where this should be moved to. And I create the task. And this is the task creation, of course. This creation or this created task is now just sent to the workflow as we saw before. Yeah, so it would be directly reflected in the mobile application that we are using to log the examples here. Yeah, as you see here, after creation of the task, it would pop up here. And actually, this is then the end of the system demo so far.
Okay.
I would now switch back to you, Michael, with some.
Yes, before we do that, Matthias, just hold on a second, because there have been a couple of questions in the chat, so thanks for asking them.
Okay.
So one of the very obvious questions is, with these mobile devices which you have presented and mobile apps which you have presented, what kind of device do I need in order to run these processes which you have presented?
Okay, so those apps are possible to run on any device, on any let's put it like up-to-date device. So we don't depend here on an operating system, so it can be Android as well as iOS from Apple. It can also be Windows Mobile, for example. So we are not really depending on any operating system. The only thing that you should keep in mind for the mobile device, it should have a screen resolution or screen size that makes it comfortable for the user to work with. So when it is too small, it might not be too comfortable. And you also need to keep in mind those are the mobile device should be just in the state that it can be used outdoor. So meaning it could be a rugged tablet, for example. So it is not that you could work with a normal household iPad or Galaxy Tab, outside in the yard. Meaning that you can't use those devices in the rain, and you can't use those devices with gloves on. Just keep that in mind. We are not depending on the operating system, but you or the outside worker would depend a little bit on the ruggedness of the mobile device. And those were just two examples. I mentioned the manufacturer, but of course any device would be good, with a good screen resolution, screen size, and a little bit of ruggedness. Good.
Another question was, since we are talking about processes which are happening outside of the four walls of the warehouse, for example, what about internet connectivity? So what about if I have to move a trailer in the yard and I have to move it into an area where there's no internet connectivity?
So this is a little bit, first of all, those applications are not, they have no offline capability at the moment. It is on the roadmap, so it will be available in a couple of months, but at the moment there is no offline capability. But I'm sure, or I can assure you, you don't need necessarily a Wi-Fi connection for this. You can also just use a mobile SIM card on or in the mobile device, to have this feedback to the system. And since this is not a warehouse, we are not in some concrete structure. We are not inside a structure. We are often directly outside on a container terminal, in a rail yard. We are on a truck yard. So we always have this signal from just a signal from the SIM card, from a mobile provider. And actually we never faced the problem that we don't have any internet connectivity in each and every implementation that we did over the last couple of years. Did this answer the question?
I think so, yes. I hope so. All right, good. Thank you for the system demo and for all these explanations, Matthias. So let's use the last 9 minutes remaining to focus a little bit on the question, how can we implement such processes? and what are the implementation concepts going forward. And for that, I'm going to share my screen again. Now, as said, the question towards the end, which we want to look into a little bit more, is how can we implement YL? What are the overall approaches when it comes to the implementation, and what has Westernacher in particular to add? And in general, our approach is that, bottom line, of course, we want to add value with anything which what the Yard Logistics implementation will bring you, because the overall goal is that we digitize the processes, make them better, make them also fit for the future, and also try to build that bridge between transportation and warehousing, which very often still today is a bottleneck in supply chain processes. And as you know, also with everything what has happened over the past 24 months with COVID and disruptions in supply chains, it is more than important to make sure that whether you're a shipper or whether you are a transporter, that you make sure that the entire value chain from a transportation perspective, and that includes the warehousing part as well as the yard part, is up to speed and can also work as expected. Again, coming back a little bit on the question and on the topic, where do we stand and where do we start with? Yeah, in general, we see 4 different kind of customers and 4 different kinds of yard processes when it comes to their digitization. Yeah, many customers are right now moving down here. Yeah, so these are processes where either there is no yard management solution in place at all, or we have a yard management solution in place, but it's an isolated solution which is either not really integrated or doesn't cover all the processes. And this is for most of our customers the beginning of their journey, where we take them from a manual yard, which is completely operated manually, towards more digitization in their journey. Because the end state which we want to achieve is obviously over here, yeah, where we have advanced yards or even very innovative yards, which either enable you for digital processes or even very holistic yard processes. And the overall idea is, the more you go up this ladder here, the more value you will generate with your yard process, and the less handling time you will also need. So to give you an example, if I today have to manually register trucks in the yard and have to manually look up certain reference numbers and do certain checks, and this takes me on average 5 minutes per trailer which I want to check in. If I implement a yard logistics solution, this takes me at the end of the day maybe half a minute or a minute. I have a first of all time gain of only 4 minutes, but if you look at 500, 600, 700 trucks which you handle a day, then you can easily think about how much time this is saved. Yeah? So the idea really is, the more digitized you go with your yard, the more value you will create, the lesser is the handling time, and also the more you will free up your workers, which today have to handle all these manual processes, so that they can start working on more value-adding tasks. For example, looking at inspection processes more closely to make sure that we inspect, that we only load or unload trailers which are in a good state. So how can we go forward? How can we make that happen in terms of the YL implementation? There are several steps, yeah, which we from Westernacher take our customers through. Yeah. So let's assume after today you want to investigate a little bit more into the yard logistics topic. Yeah, since you find this very interesting and you would like to also elaborate how yard logistics could fit into your processes, how could it fit into your IT landscape, and how could it fit maybe into your SAP roadmap. And one of the things which we do is what we call an inspiration day, which is something like a half-day workshop where our team is coming, trying to first of all understand the current situation, trying to also already identify the first pain points and give you what it is, an inspiration how yard logistics could improve your processes by showing you the system, by also showing you how this could be implemented, and also by, in the end of the day, coming out with a future high-level goal and the next steps for such a solution. Yeah. The inspiration day, as said, is typically half a day, ideally taking place on site, although we all know that this is hard to achieve. But it definitely helps if our team can look at the premises and then look at what it is. And this one is free of charge in a service which we offer to you. The other thing which we could potentially look into, and this goes one level deeper, is a business case and scoping workshop. And you see, it's kind of similar to the inspiration day. However, we would be here going much more into detail when it comes to what we would be discussing. So this typically starts with a pain point analysis. So really looking at your pain points from a process perspective. Where do you lose time? Where do you lose visibility? Where do you lose efficiency as of now, in order to have a good understanding of the current as-is process, and from there define how it should be in the future using Yard Logistics, defining the high-level to-be processes, defining also the improvement points, defining quick wins and low-hanging fruits for our implementation, so that in the end of the day we can define a joint goal and also already a solution concept and a scope which we could implement going forward. And this is this is something which goes way more into detail, takes typically 3 to 10 days. It's configurable in the sense that, of course, it depends how much the detail is. Yeah, this could, in the end of the day, result already in a complete solution design, which of course then takes a little bit more longer time. But this can be also something like a first pain point analysis and health check of your current processes to have a plan going forward. Another option how you can start with your Yard Logistics journey is that SAP offers a 30 days free trial for SAP Yard Logistics. So what this is that you request with SAP an access to their demo cloud Yard Logistics environment. So for 30 days, you will have access to a Yard Logistics system which is up to date, where you can basically play around like you would do in a traditional sandbox environment. And within these 30 days, we would be also supporting you with a small team in order to, number one, look at the processes you would like to see in Yard Logistics. We would also, in the train the trainer approach, train your people how to customize and how to configure this system, so that in the end of the day, after a week or two of these 30 days, you have a system, you have a process up and running in YL, which you can then demonstrate and showcase within or with relevant stakeholders. Yeah. So idea here is that with the 30 days free trial, you have the possibility to experience Yard Logistics by yourself. And we are going to help you here within these 30 days to set up the environment, set up the processes, answer your questions, so that you can make the best out of this free trial. The moment you have decided for going for an implementation, and you have decided to go with Westernacher, which would be, of course, the ideal case, is that we are looking into 2 different implementation concepts. So one is what we call the classic implementation. What is the classic implementation? The classic implementation starts from scratch, where we start with looking at your processes and looking at the scope, and come in the end of the day out with developing everything and following what we call our methodology here, which is the project split into 5 phases. On the other side, in order to speed up things, what we also offer here as an implementation concept are so-called fast solutions. And we have 2 of them. One is the starter solution, which is a solution to, first of all, overcome this first step of the manual cumbersome processes, to digitize the processes, to get a first implementation of YL as soon as possible, to, for example, have the processes which you have seen today implemented in YL. And that is something which typically takes 12 weeks from the moment we start the project until we conclude hypercare and give the solution to you for business as usual. And the second option which we have is the automation solution, which we have, which is built on top of the starter solution, but adds the automation component, which is available in standard. For example, what Matthias has mentioned with tasks which are automated, or follow-up activities which are automatically triggered when an inspection fails, or if a measurement exceeds a certain threshold. So these kind of automation levels would be part of this automation solution. Again, same idea here. This is a 16 weeks or 4 months project until we go live, 18 weeks until we conclude hypercare. And the idea in the end of the day is that YL as a solution can definitely help you here by covering your processes. And we want to help you not with long implementation programs, which take half a year before you see the first value, idea really is that we implement as fast as possible the low-hanging fruits and optimize the biggest pain points by using either the starter or the automation package, so that you, after a short while, can already see the improvements and take it from there when it comes to additional automation, process improvements, rollouts across several sites, so that you have a very good basis, a very good foundation, and also something like a lighthouse within your organization from where you can take this yard logistics journey. Time is up. We are almost on time, just slightly exceeded. So thank you so much for joining. In case you have any question as a follow-up, you have our contact details here. Please feel free to either approach myself or Matthias, and then we are more than happy to get the discussion going with you and start elaborating the first steps within your yard logistics journey. Have a great day. Take care. Thanks for dialing in again, and hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.